Hello to all of my dive buddies around the world. My name is Christian Stockwell. I'm a scuba diving instructor out here in Oahu, Hawaii, and the owner of Lokahi Scuba. Today on this channel, we are starting a brand new series called the Decompression Zone, where I take your most commonly Googled questions and answer them to the best of my knowledge, based on my experience and my education. Today, the subject we are tackling is if scuba diving is safe for kids, and what are the possible medical things we need to look out for as parents and instructors to make sure our kids have a healthy and awesome experience under the water. Without further ado, let's decompress the question, is scuba diving safe for kids? Short answer, yes, it is perfectly safe for kids to dive. Diving at a young age does not have any long-term health risks or more risk associated to it than diving as an older adult. With that being said, since kids do have certain medical dispositions and maturity-wise aren't as developed as adults, there are a couple risks that us instructors and parents need to look out for. And I'll touch on those right now. I do want to note before we continue onward, I am no way, shape, or form a doctor. This is not medical advice. This is just things that I know to be true based on my education in becoming a scuba diving instructor and with my experience in this field. Let's talk about physical development first. Kids aren't mini adults. They'll be developing from the moment they are born all the way towards their mid-20s, all right? And also kids develop at different speeds rather than their peers. So it isn't really a one-size-fits-all model when it comes to when we should start looking out for some medical concerns, when we should stop, all right? So we always just like to be generally consensus and give a little benefit on the more precautionary side. One common thing us instructors tend to advise and look out for when it comes to diving is our children's students' undeveloped Yosekian tubes. This is in the middle ear. With kids, since their Yosekian tubes are developing and it doesn't let the passage of water and air come through as easily as it does in adults, kids are more prone to ear barotrauma and middle ear infections. So, we're gonna make sure we're cleaning our ears and not forcing equalization, and making sure we're equalizing properly and not forcing it. Also, with kids, thermal regulation can also be a slight issue due to the higher body to mass surface area ratio. This, of course, will increase the risk of hypothermia. For a tropical area like Hawaii, it's not really that big of a concern, but if you're diving in an area like the Puget Sound or a little more northern waters or lakes, depending on where you're diving, this is something you guys have to look out for. Pulmonary concerns in children are also another thing we have to look out for, main one being childhood onset asthma. Not the end of the world though, however, I actually had childhood onset asthma when I was in my younger years. Fortunately, through my mom signing me up from swim team and being a generally active kid, I grew out of it pretty fast. I was able to get a doctor's note at the age of 14 that said I am A-OK to get my open water certification, and the rest was history. So if your kid has asthma, not the end of the world, just something you should look out for as a parent, and maybe ask your doctor about consulting before you take your kid to get scuba certified. There is a theory going around that decompression stress has an impact on growing bones. However, this is just a theory with no concrete evidence behind it. Just want to throw that out there in case someone in the comments has a question about that later. One other thing we take into account with children is their maturity, their ability to manage risk, to assess plans, to act out properly in stressful situations. All these things are important when we're assessing if a kid is ready to dive or not. Attention spans, emotional control, and the ability to focus are very important attributes in divers. So if your kid is very emotionally mature for their age, there should be no issue. If they aren't, it's probably best to wait a couple of years, let them mature a little bit, develop these skills, and then we can get them down under the water. Training and supervision. When training children, we need to tailor to their needs, whether this is limiting the amount of depth or the exposure to risk they may take. For example, as a PADI instructor, we are instructed for a junior open water for someone between the ages of 12, their max depth that they will be certified to is 40 feet, instead of the typical 60 feet that any open water is typically certified for. A typical and good practice you might see in the field or in training is pairing a child diver with an older experienced diver, one that can constantly monitor air, depth, and behavior throughout the entire dive thoroughly. Age and readiness. The readiness to dive is depending on the maturity of the child. If they can manage all the things I mentioned earlier, then they are ready to dive. Also, parents, the child must genuinely want to dive. All right, if they're being forced to dive by an outside force, whether it's you guys or schooling, and they're not paying attention because they're not there and genuinely interested, that is what's going to lead to unsafe dives due to their inability to focus in class and not comprehend all of the material that is given to them. They need to want to do it. Equipment and environment. The equipment and environment is also very important. We have to make sure that they are all wearing properly fitted gear. Sometimes dive shops, to make it easier on themselves, will try to fit kids into oversized gear. Make sure your child, whether they're in training or on dives in the future, are in properly fitting gear that fits them nice and snug and is very safe and comfortable. Again, one additional note, kids should start shallow, especially if they're in that younger age range of 10 to 12. Please start them shallow, and then they can go deeper as they age and become more mature and competent divers. Make sure the shop is very reputable and knows what they're doing and has the proper safety equipment as well. This can be things such as oxygen units, communication tools, and even reviews left by other people who have used this dive service in the past. Make sure to see anything regarding safety, you ask why. Also, a little honesty from you to the dive operation is very important as well. Please do not lie about your child's medical history just to pass them by a dive medical check. A couple of times I've had exes in the past where parents have lied about their child having a medical problem and where we've had to cancel in the middle of the course due to me either finding out from the child or me seeing symptoms of a potential issue. Be honest up front. Do not jeopardize your child's health and enjoyment of scuba diving just for them to not need an extra signature from a doctor. Now, as instructors, it is our role to make sure that we assess the kid not solely just upon their age, but on their readiness by doing a lot of skill evaluations, as well as knowledge development evaluations. Before we even get in the water, if you are doing a dive class in person with your knowledge development, you can make sure your diver is properly getting all the information needed, comprehending the information you're delivering to them, and learning along the way and is genuinely engaged. The physical swim test before you can find open water is also a great way of finding out if that child is actually ready to dive, making sure they're physically fit enough to actually complete the course safely. As I mentioned earlier, young divers require tailored programs. Programs should promote positive experiences over rigid timelines. Children learn better that way, just trust me. Before we conclude all this, I just want to hit you with a couple of common questions I usually get from concerned parents. What age can my kids start diving? Depending on the certification agency, you can start diving as low as 10 years old. As a PADI instructor, I can certify a junior open water diver at the age of 10 and a regular open water diver at the age of 12. But then again, this all really stems down to the maturity of the child. If they can learn and minus stress and be safe underwater, then they are A-okay. If they're still 12 years old and don't have the maturity to do that, then they're still too young to dive. What about long-term health risks? There's currently no evidence to suggest that diving promotes long-term health risks if done safely. All right? There's plenty of ways to dive unsafe. I'll touch on those in a lot of other videos, but if done safely, there's no evidence to suggest that diving may lead to long-term health complications. How can risk be minimized? As in all things, risk can be minimized by sticking with the plan. Follow in depth and time restrictions. Make sure whenever you plan a dive or you plan dive training, you always put safety in mind first, then have fun. In conclusion, safety is very achievable. With proper precautions, training, and supervision, scuba diving can be a safe and rewarding experience for all ages, especially kids. Introducing children to the underwater world responsibly, fostering confidence, skills, and environmental appreciation has tons of mental and physical health benefits. And heck, they might get the scuba certification at 14-year-old, become addicted, and just end up becoming a pro diver, and the rest is history. Not too shabby, eh? Honestly, my most rewarding experiences as an instructor comes from working with kids. The amount of awe they bring into whatever they learn regarding the underwater world and the mysteries it holds just psychs me out so much, and these kids are sponges. They get them in the water, they see their first turtle, they are hooked for life. I can guarantee it, they will love it. My final advice to parents, pick reputable dive shops that have a lot of experience working with children, and make sure you stay close and involved in the process. Whether that's on the boat, on the beach, or making sure you know exactly what kind of training your child is going through. And that concludes our first decompression question on this channel. Whoop, whoop. If you guys found this information useful at any sort of capacity whatsoever, please consider leaving a like down below and subscribing to our channel. I'm going to be posting on this channel going forward at least once or twice a week, depending on how busy I am on the boat. And speaking of the boat, if you guys are ever looking to get dive certified in Oahu or even doing scuba diving boat tours, my company, Lokahi Scuba, would be happy to help you guys out with your scuba diving goals. We run tours almost every day of the week and scuba certifications at least once or twice a month. So if you guys are ever in town, make sure to click that link down below, see what's available to book. We'd love to have you guys out in the water. We have some amazing dive sites here on the South Shore of Oahu. We'd love to check it out with you. Until next time, go out there, enjoy the ocean. I'll see you guys in the next video.